problems like in homes? Difficulty brushing teeth before going to bed at night, difficulty turning off the Xbox to come in for dinner, difficulty turning off the electronics to go to bed at night. There's a sampling, and as you're probably noticing, those are fairly mundane expectations, but it's when kids have difficulty meeting them that concerning behavior occurs. So now we have a choice. We can focus on the concerning behavior and try to modify it, which might improve the behavior, but definitely will not solve the problem that's causing the behavior. Or we can focus on solving the problem that's causing the behavior, which will both solve the problem and reduce the concerning behavior, because solved problems don't cause concerning behavior, only unsolved problems do. And then the only other thing I would add to that, and this is a big paradigm shift for a lot of people as well, the problem solving is collaborative, not unilateral.
That's a big thing even across some cultures.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And the problem solving is proactive, not reactive. So those change things up quite a bit, and present big paradigm shifts for a lot of caregivers.
Yes, I love that you're focusing on not focusing on the behavior management, because oftentimes, we as therapists, psychologists, or coach, you need to fix my child. My child is exhibiting this kind of behavior. They're having tantrums and meltdowns. And so fix him, fix her for me. So you're inviting parents to change their lens to say it's not the behavior that we're looking at. In your book, Raising Human Beings, you mention the whole aspect of the misbehaviors and so on that we experience with our children is actually a result of incompatibility relating to their characteristics and our expectations. So can you explain to parents what that is? Because sometimes parents think children are misbehaving because they just want to annoy us today. They're just being difficult for no reason. And there are so many other reasons, but you're saying change that lens. It is an incompatibility with expectations and characteristics. So explain to parents what that's all about.
First of all, kids are not difficult for no reason. There's no thrill in being difficult. The most important theme of the model is kids do well if they can. The belief that if this kid could do well, the kid would do well. The important thing is if the kid isn't doing well, what's getting in the kid's way? There's an expectation the kid is having difficulty meeting. There's a problem that needs to be solved. Now, why do kids respond so poorly to frustration when that's true of the kid? Because the kid is lacking skills to respond more adaptively to frustration. And that is a huge piece of knowledge that the research has given us over the last 40 to 50 years. This is about kids who are responding maladaptively to problems and frustrations are lacking skills, not motivation, which number one should cause us to question why we have been so busy trying to motivate them. But it's also a completely different set of lenses. What I mean by incompatibility is if a kid is able to meet a particular expectation that we're putting on the kid, for example, keeping their room clean, and we put that expectation on the kid, then we have compatibility. It's an expectation the kid isn't having difficulty meeting, life is good. But if we put an expectation on a kid and the kid is having difficulty meeting that expectation, now we have incompatibility. And now the risk of concerning behavior has been greatly heightened because there's an expectation the kid is having difficulty meeting. Now, just as an example, in my household, with my two kids who are now 23 and 21 years old, that would never have caused incompatibility because I didn't really care if their room was clean, right? It's your room. I don't want you eating food in there because I don't want rats and mice and bugs. But beyond that, it's your room. Do what you want, right? My son's room was spotless. My daughter's room was intermittently not spotless. That didn't cause concerning behavior because I didn't care. It wasn't an expectation I was putting on my kids. If I did care, then the fact that my daughter was having trouble keeping her room clean would have had the potential to cause incompatibility and therefore concerning behavior. In this model, concerning behavior is viewed simply as the signal, the fever, the means by which a kid is communicating. There's an expectation I'm having difficulty meeting.
And I really love the aspect of expectation, because if you look at it, a lot of parents, especially in early childhood, when you have tantrums, who will say that, you know, the child is not responding to me, and they fail to look at the fact that maybe developmentally they don't have the skills, and you need to take the time to teach those self-regulatory skills to allow them to handle their emotions better. And so a lot of parents, without realizing that, go into the punishment, the timeouts, taking away privileges and so on, and that then disrupts or damages the relationship. So in talking about tantrums, you mentioned that a lot of parents may not want to hear this, but tantrum is not something bad. So people think about the terrible twos and, oh, it's awful, and I'm going to have this kid on the floor in the supermarket screaming and so on. For especially parents with those little ones, what would you want to say to them about tantrums and regulatory skills and what is really happening to their children and what they can do as parents?
I will say, I don't think of tantrums as pleasant, but I also don't think of them as terrible. They are the way small kids and even some big ones communicate that they're having difficulty meeting an expectation. Now, that tells you there's incompatibility. And that should cause parents to do a few important things. It should cause us to take a look at, am I putting expectations on my kid that my kid is having difficulty meeting? Some caregivers think, if I have the expectation, then my kid needs to be able to meet it. That's it. And I'm being soft if I don't insist that my kid meet it. And I'm being even softer if, when I demand that the kid meet it and the kid throws a tantrum, I'm being soft if I don't put the kid in timeout or insist even further. I would actually call that throwing fuel on the fire. What am I expecting of this kid? Are my expectations out of whack, given the skills that my kid is bringing to the table? That's parenting. That's good parenting. For a long time, unfortunately, the definition of good parenting was simply throwing expectations at the kid and insisting that the kid meet them, no matter how the kid let you know that the kid was having difficulty meeting them, right? That's not good parenting. If your kid is having difficulty meeting a particular expectation, you want to notice. You do not want to throw fuel on the fire, and you want to find out what's going on with your kid that's causing them to have difficulty meeting that expectation. And
then parents might hear this, but then as you were speaking, I thought back to what you said, that the collaborative and proactive solutions is a joint venture. And so some parents might think, but I should be the parent, though. I should be the one to set the rules. I should be the one to say to the child, this is your bedtime. This is what you're supposed to be doing, and so on. So if I have this collaborative approach, isn't that going to result in permissiveness? Is it that I'm going to lose control of my child, and then my child is going to become a spoiled brat? So for parents who might have those concerns, what can you say to them about it?
You still have expectations. You cannot
So the key thing is the expectations.
You cannot parent without having expectations. And your expectations are the way you communicate to your kid about your experience and your wisdom and your values. Expectations are great. Expectations that your kid is having difficulty meeting are not so great. So once again, if your expectations are being met by your kid, no worries. It's when your expectations are not being met that many parents are petrified that their only two options are give in, permissiveness, or cause a complete meltdown, which is a horrible definition of authority. There is actually a third option, and that is what I call Plan B. That's where you're solving the problem collaboratively and proactively with your kid. But here's what's interesting. Notice how petrified everybody is of giving in. You're not giving in when you're solving problems collaboratively and proactively with your kid. You're not giving up your expectations when you're solving problems collaboratively and proactively with your kid. But instead of simply using power to make your kid meet the expectation and often cause a big mess, you are instead being more collaborative and trying to find out from your kid what's making it hard for your kid to meet this expectation and how can we solve this problem together.
Yes, and I'm going to push again a little bit because I'm thinking about it from a cultural point of view as well, where there's a lot of authoritarian parenting from my experience and also a little bit from my culture. And collaborative sounds really nice, but then you might have those parents who say, I'm not supposed to be my child's friend. I am supposed to be the person in authority. I'm asking you this several times because I know a lot of parents will, especially if they're not from a culture or a family where authoritative parenting is practiced, they're more from the authoritarian part. They might get stuck with that and say, sounds great, but I am the parent. I'm not supposed to be my child's friend. Doing this collaborative thing, I don't think it's appropriate. And then another one, can I really do that even with a 3 and 4-year-old? So for those parents who are from the authoritarian background, I really want you to dive in a little bit deeper for them.
You are still an authority figure. You still have expectations. You collaborating with a kid does not mean being the kid's friend. It means solving the problems that are affecting your kid's life, but doing it in a way that doesn't cause your kid to lose their mind. I don't think a good definition of authority figure is someone who is so insistent on using power that they cause their kid to continuously melt down and throw tantrums. That is not a good definition of an authority figure. An authority figure knows their kid, has expectations, and tries to figure out what's making it hard for the kid to meet the expectation in collaboration with their kid. And here's why the collaborative piece is so important. We adults are frequently wrong about what's making it hard for a kid to meet a particular expectation. We think we know, but we don't know. By the way, another definition of an authority figure is not being a know-it-all. Another definition of an authority figure is not being able to read your kid's mind. Where did these definitions of authority come from? I have no idea. You're not a mind reader. Your kid has very important information to provide to you about what's making it hard for them to meet a particular expectation. Your kid can collaborate with you even at the age of 2 on solving the problems that affect their lives. You can get rid of the power. You're still an authority figure, and you can solve problems in a way that brings you and your kid together rather than pushing you guys further apart.